Hi everyone, welcome to the session on Agile methodology CS22071. Today we are going to see the topic as Agile metrics from Unit 5, Agility and Quality Assurance. Uh, so, uh, Agile metrics help the teams to measure the performance, productivity, delivery efficiency. So, these metrics ensure that we are continuously adding values to the customer. So, instead of focusing on the strict deadlines, so Agile team track the continuous delivery and improvement through these matrices. So these matrices make the progress visible. For example, we can tracking the sprint velocity, burn down the charts and lead times. So agile metrics are not about the control. They are about the learning and adapting as a team. So they focus on collaboration, adaptability and iterative improvement over the control. So regular metric reviews promote the reflection and process refinement during the retrospective. It is the effective metrics reveal the strength, bottlenecks and improvement opportunities. So agile metrics ultimately ensure sustained improvement and predictable outcome. In next slide we will see what is the purpose of the agile metrics. The main purpose of the Agile metrics is to give us the visibility to see how our team is progressing in terms of work, quality, efficiency and speed. So, the Agile metrics are not just about the numbers, they help us make a smart data backed decisions that improve the customer satisfaction and deliver the real value. So they guide the data driven decisions that enhance the customer value and satisfactions. Here the agile metrics allow the teams to identify and address the process inefficiency proactively. So they help stakeholders forecast outcomes and prioritize work more effectively. So transparent metrics increase the trust between the development teams and then management, so that the agile metrics foster a learning culture through the evidence based discussion. Here the ultimate purpose is the alignment between the effort, value and user outcome. In next slide we will see the what are the characteristics of a effective agile metrics. Here the metrics should be emphasize team performance, not a individual competitions. Here they must promote the collaborations and shared ownership rather than blame. So agile metrics are simple, transparent and easy for all to interpret. So effective metrics provides both the short term and trend based insight. They combine the quantitative data with qualitative team reflections. So metrics should evolve with the maturity and needs of the agile team. They must always reinforce value creation, adaptability and continuous learning. In next slide, we will see the topic as velocity. Now, let's talk about the velocity. It is one of the most widely used in the agile metrics. So, velocity simply tells us how much work a team completes in a one sprint. So, usually measured in the story points. For example, if a team completes 40 story points in the last sprint, That gives us an idea of their capacity for the next sprint. So this helps the team plan better and make the realistic commitments instead of over promising. So when a team velocity remains consistent over several sprints, it shows the stable productivity and efficient process. But if we fluctuations like a sudden drop or sharp increase, it might indicate the bottlenecks or overcommitment or changing the priorities. So another key point is velocity gives the another key point is velocity provides a historical data for improving the estimation accuracy over time to make a planning very reliable. It enables the predictable delivery and helps manage the stakeholder expectation and keep all the processes transparent and continuously improving. So velocity is not just a number, it is a mirror that reflects how healthy and steady our agile process really is. In next slide, we will see the velocity, here the best practices and what are the pitfalls are there. So first we should always look at the velocity trends over the several sprints rather than judging based on a single sprint. For example, one sprint might be affected by the holidays or technical blockers, but the overall trend gives the realistic forecast. And next one is, it is very important not to compare the velocity between the teams. So each team works under different conditions, different members, tools and challenges. So comparing them is like comparing apples and oranges. So also remember that velocity is a planning tool, not a performance score. It's meant to help with forecasting, not to rate how good or bad a team is performing. When measuring the velocity, make sure that include only completed and tested work. If something is not done or tested, it should not be counted. Otherwise, we get the false sense of progress. So, we can also analyze the changes in the velocity to spot issues like the process bottlenecks or blockers and fix them early. So, after big scope changes or when a new team members join, it's a good idea to reset or re-baseline the velocity so future sprints are planned accurately. And finally, the most important point, encourage the open discussions about the improvement instead of the chasing numbers. So in short, velocity is the powerful when used wisely, but it can be misleading if used competitively or without conflict. In next slide, we will see the lead time and now let's look at two important time-based metrics, that is the lead time and cycle time. So both of this help us understand how efficiently work is flowing through our agile process. So first, what is lead time? So lead time is the total time from the moment the customer makes a request until the request is delivered. So think of it like ordering food online, from placing the order to the moment it is delivered to your doorstep, that is your lead time. And next one is cycle time. It is a bit different. It measures the how long it takes once the team actually starts working on a task until it's completed. So in our food example, the cycle time begins when the restaurant starts cooking and ends when the food is ready for delivery. So both of these metrics together shows us how responsive and efficient our workflow is. If both lead and cycle time are short, that means the process is smooth and optimized. But if they are long, it could mean they are bottlenecks. Maybe tasks are waiting too long in review or resources are stuck somewhere. That's why we monitor these metrics regularly. They help us spot where work is slowed down. So, Agile team often use control charts or flow diagrams to visualize these patterns and see how work moves through a system. And finally, when we reduce the variation in cycle time, it leads to steady, predictable delivery, which is exactly what Agile aims so far. So, in overall, lead time tells us about the customer experience, while cycle time tells us the team's efficiency. In next slide, we will see the lead and cycle time optimization. So now that we know what lead time and cycle time are, so let's see how we can actually improve or optimize them. The first step is to identify and minimize the queue times. So these are the waiting periods between stages. For example, when a task finishes development but waits 2 days for testing, that's wasted time. By reducing these queues, we make workflow much faster. Next, we should break the large backlog items into smaller deliverable pieces. So, smaller tasks move faster through the systems and give quick feedback which keeps the momentum going. Another useful technique is to limit work in progress. When too many tasks are open at once, team members switch between them and that causes a delay. So focusing on fewer tasks at a time improves both the speed and quality. We can also automate the repetitive tasks like testing, deployment or builds. So automation saves the times and reduces errors, helping us to cut down the cycle time significantly. So it will give equally important is collaboration, encouraging the smooth communication between the developers, testers and designers. It reduces the misunderstanding and handoff delays. Then during the retrospective, we can analyze the data to find where delays are happening. Maybe approvals takes too long or testing gets piled up, and then find a ways to reduce the lead time. And finally, remember that continuous monitoring is a key. Optimization is not one time effort, it's about the constantly finding the small ways to make the process better and faster every sprint. So in short, optimizing the lead and cycle time means keeping the work small, flow steady and feedback continuous. In next slide, we will see the burn down chart. Here we'll see the definition and role of the burn down. Now let's look at one of the most visual and popular agile tools, the burn down chart. Imagine you are running a sprint and you want to know how much work do we still have left. So that's exactly what the burn down chart shows. It tracks the remaining work versus time for a sprint. It gives the team a quick snapshot of your progress. You don't have to go through the reports, just a glance at the chart tells you whether you are on the track to finish on time. In a healthy sprint, the burn down line should move steadily downward, gradually reaching near zero by the end of the sprint. That downward slope means the team is completing the work at a steady pace. But if the line becomes the flat or even goes upward, that's a red flag. It means something is stuck, maybe task has not started, so there is a blocker preventing progress. So these visuals cues help the team respond quickly rather than discovering the issues too late. By tracking it daily, the team stays aware of the progress and can discuss the blockers in stand-ups and finding the solutions together. It also builds the transparency. Everyone, including the stakeholders, can see how the sprint is going. So there are no surprise at the end because progress is visible every day. So finally the burn down chart supports data driven adjustments. The team can look at past charts to learn the patterns, estimate the better and continuously improve the future trends. So the burn down chart is the team's visual heartbeat. If it is moved down smoothly, the things are healthy. If it is the flat, it's time to take an action. In next slide, we will see the interpreting the burn down chart. Now that we have seen what burn down chart is, let's learn how to read or interpret it, because the real power lies in understanding what those lines actually mean. So when we see a smooth, consistent downward trend, that is a great sign. It shows that the team is progressing steadily through the sprint and completing their task regularly with no major interruption. But if you notice the sharp drops near the end of the chart, that usually means the work got completed in a rush. Maybe most tasks were finished right before the sprint ended. It could point to issues like poor task breakdown or last minute pressure. And next one is the flat lines are something to watch carefully. They show the progress as stalled, or maybe the technical dependency, delays in the review or other obstacles blocking the flow of work. Now, if the lines moves upward, that means scope has increased. Perhaps new work was added or some rework had to be done midway through the sprint. So this helps teams discuss how to handle changes without losing the control over delivery. When teams compare burn down charts across the multiple sprints, they can start seeing the long term patterns, like whether estimations are getting better, if delays are repeating at the same stage. So these insights help teams refine their estimation, focus and collaboration. It's not about the blaming anyone, it's about learning from the patterns. So always remember, burn down charts are learning tools, not judgmental metrics. They help teams reflect, adapt and grow sprint by sprint. In next slide, we will see the cumulative flow diagram, that is the CFD. Now let's look at another important agile visualization, the cumulative flow diagram or CFD. If the burn down chart shows how much work is left, the CFD, that is the cumulative flow diagram, shows how that works move through the different stages, like to do, in progress and done. So we can see these process in the cumulative flow diagram. Think of it like looking at traffic on a road. Each color band in the CFD represent lane. One lane for the task yet to start, one for task being worked on and one for task completed. Over time, these lanes grow, showing how work is flowing. When the colored bands look smooth and evenly spaced, it means everything is flowing nicely. The team is balancing work well and the tasks are moving steadily from to do to done. But if you notice the band is suddenly expands or widens, that's like a traffic jam. It tells that there is a bottleneck in the stage, maybe too many tasks are stuck in the testing or waiting for approval. So, cumulative flow diagram helps us to spot these issues early before they slow down the whole sprint. By regularly observing this diagram, teams can detect uneven workloads and see where the delays happen and take the quick action to balance things again. A healthy cumulative flow diagram means the team is working at the sustainable phase, not rushing at the end, not stuck in the middle, just a smooth continuous flow. That's why we say the CFD acts like a pulse check for the agile process. It shows whether the system is healthy or stressed and helps the team adjust before problems grow. In next slide, we will see the analyzing the cumulative flow diagram. Now that we know that cumulative flow diagram is, let's learn how actually read and analyze it. Imagine again that each colored band represents the stage of the work, that is the to do, in progress and done. Now what happens when the progress band becomes the wider over time? That means too many tasks are being started at once but not finished yet. Just like you're opening too many browser tabs on your computer, everything is slowed down. It's a sign that team needs to be limit the work in progress and focus on finishing before starting the new task. On the other hand, if the done section narrows or does not grow as expected, it tells us the delivery is slowing down, maybe because of blocker, review delays or testing issues. When we see parallel even phased bands, that's the best case scenario. It shows the steady workflow. Tasks are moving smoothly from start to finish without bottlenecks. Teams keep an eye on this shape and patterns in the cumulative flow diagram to spot the delays or inefficiency early. It's like reading a health report for the project. If the lines stay smooth, your process is healthy. If they bend or bulge, you know where to investigate. By consistently analyzing the cumulative flow diagram, teams can balance work among the members, adjust the priorities, and make sure no one is overloaded. So, when you compare the cumulative flow diagram across the multiple sprints, you can see whether your team's flow efficiency is improving, or tasks are getting completed faster, is the process smoother now than before. That's why we say the cumulative flow diagram is not just a chart, it is the predictability tool. It helps the agile teams maintain the stability and ensure that every sprint becomes the more efficient than the last. Now let's see the next one as the defect density. Defect density is the one of the key agile metrics that tell us about the product quality. In simple terms, defect density means how many defects or bugs are found per completed feature and story point. So, if your team delivered 10 user stories and 5 defect, your defect density would be 0.5, meaning half a defect per story. So this gives us a direct measure of quality and a testing effectiveness. When the defect density is low, it means our design, coding, validation process are strong. We are building the things right the first time, but if we defect density is high, it is a signal that something in our process, maybe design, testing or communication, needs to be improved. By tracking the defect density over time, teams can notice patterns like which modules or sprints tend to have more issues. So this helps pinpoint recurring problems instead of fixing them temporarily. A good agile team does not just fix the bugs, it tries to prevent them. That's why this metric encourages a proactive quality mindset, focusing on improving the process rather than blaming the people. So teams also use it to analyze the root cause and asking why did this defect happen rather than just how do we fix it. This approach strengthens the development process in the long run. And when teams measure defect density consistently, they can see how quality evolves sprint after sprint. Whether that changes are truly improving outcomes, it becomes the continuous feedback loop for long term quality enhancement. So the defect density helps the teams shift from reactive to preventive quality culture, which is the real sprint of the agile testing. In next slide we will see the additional agile quality. Now that we have understood the defect density, let's look at some additional agile quality metrics that give us the complete picture of how healthy our product really is. The first one is escaped defect. These are the bugs that slip past testing and are discovered after release by the end user. When this number is high, it tells us our testing process needs strengthening. So, escaped defect helps us measure how effective our quality assurance really is in catching the problem before customers see them. So, next we have code coverage. This shows what percentage of the code has actually been tested through the automated or manual test cases. Think of it like health check. The higher the coverage, the more confident we are that the system has been properly verified. Then comes the test pass rate, which simply tell us how many of the executed test case passed successfully. A high pass rate means the system is stable, while the low rate signals that we need to investigate the root cause quickly. So deployment frequency is another useful agile metric. It measures how often new updates or features are delivered to production. In Agile, frequent deployments show that the team is confident, responsive, and continuously delivering the value to user. The next one is the mean time repair, that is MTTR. It answers the question, when something breaks, how fast can we fix it? A short answer for the MTTR means the team can handle incident quickly and minimize the downtime, which is the critical for customer trust. When we track all this metric together, escaped defect, code coverage, test pass rate, deployment frequency and MTTR, we get a full picture of both the speed and quality. It helps the teams build systems that are not just fast but resilient and dependable. So finally, remember, the goal is not just to release quickly but to maintain a balance. Quality and speed together lead the customer satisfaction and long term trust. So these quality metrics act like a compass, helping teams stay on course toward consistent improvement. In next slide, we will see the topic as balanced metric approach. So far we have seen a lot of different agile metrics: velocity, cycle time, defect density, CFD and so on. But there is an important question: is it enough to track just one or two of them? The answer is no. In agile, success comes from the balanced view. So agile teams must balance the efficiency, quality and predictability. For example, metrics like velocity and cycle time show how productive we are, while CFD and defect density tell us whether our quality is improving or dropping. If we only chase one, say the higher velocity, we might end up sacrificing the quality. That's why we should avoid focusing too much on a single metric. When one number becomes the only goal, teams may unknowingly distort the priorities, like rushing work just to increase the velocity. So instead, we need to combine the multiple metrics to get the holistic view of team performance. It's like a health checkup. You can't judge someone's health by just their heartbeat. You need the blood pressure, sugar level, oxygen too. So balanced dashboard help leaders make the better decisions. They can see productivity, quality, stability together and plan the future sprints with the confidence. So this balanced approach also supports the sustainable performance, meaning the team does not burn out the trying to meet unrealistic goals. It promotes the steady progress and long-term well-being. And most importantly, metrics should never be used for control or punishment. When used the right way, they become the tools for learning and growth. So, helping the teams continuously improve rather than compete. So, agile metrics are like instruments on a dashboard. Each one tells a part of the story, but only together do they show the full picture. In next slide, we will see the overall summary about the agile metrics. And throughout this session, we have seen how agile metrics empower the teams. They bring the visibility, predictability, and a clear sense of progress. So instead of guessing how we are doing, so these metrics give us a data-driven insight into our work and help us continuously to improve. We explored the core agile metrics: velocity, cycle time, burn down chart, cumulative flow diagram, defect density. Each one serves a specific purpose. Velocity helps with the planning, cycle time measures the speed, burn down and CFD show the progress and bottlenecks, and defect density ensure the quality. Together, they provide the complete picture of how efficiently and effectively the team is delivering the value. More importantly, metrics encourage the informed planning and transparent communication. When everyone can see the progress clearly, discussion become about the fact, not about the assumptions. So they transform the subjective opinion into objective evidence of success. And remember, the metrics are not about the control, they are about the learning. When used the right way, agile metrics drive the trust, collaboration, and continuous evaluation. They help teams reflect, adapt, and grow the sprint after sprint. So, the real goal of the agile metric is not just faster delivery, it's a value delivery through the continuous reflection and adaptations. That's what makes the agile team stronger, smarter, and more customer focused in every iteration. So, thank you for this session.